to another video, or if this is your first video of mine, hey, how you doing? Today, as you can tell from the title of this video, I am bringing you my March wrap-up, and I had a spectacular reading month in March. I'm really pleased with how much I got read, and I mainly put it down to the readathons I've been doing, because this week alone, I've read 4 books, which is really good for a week, for me. So yeah, I've read 9 books in total this March, and I'm really pleased with that. I hope to beat that in April, but that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, 9 books in March, and I'm gonna take you through them, starting from the top. The first book that I read and finished in March is Eye of the North by Sinead O'Hare. This is a middle grade polar fantasy. I read this for the 24-hour readathon sort of vlog that is up on my channel somewhere if you wanted to see that. But I read this for that, so I read it in a day. I loved it. I adored this story. It was so cute. The characters were great. As you probably are aware by now, I'm a sucker for middle grade polar fantasy, apparently, and this just hit all the right spots. It was just the right amount of adventure and polar and villainous and mystical and beautiful, and it was really, really good. I did give this a 4-star, potentially a 4.5 if I did half stars, but I don't. I really, really enjoyed it, but it just didn't quite hit the incredibly high standards that I now hold 5-star books to. 5-star books have to like absolutely knock my socks off, and I have to want to immediately run to find someone to throw the book at. It didn't quite give me that level of feels, so for me it didn't qualify as a 5-star because I've now become weirdly strict, but it was a solid 4.5 if I did half stars. Next up is another 4-star book that I have a babble on my channel, and that is Cold Maker by Daniel Cohen. This was sent to me by Harper via Daniel, like he got in contact and asked if I wanted to read it. Yes, I did. I highly suggest you check out my book babble on it, because I go into some depth on my thoughts, because it was a book babble I actually prepared for and took notes for. But I really, really enjoyed this. Again, it was a 4-star book, potentially a 4.5 if I did half stars, so it's a high 4, but just not quite hitting that 5 threshold for me. I loved it though. I loved this book. I loved the characters. The world and the atmosphere in this book is so well done. The way everything is built up and the religion and the culture and everything is really well done. Yeah, check my babble out on it if you want more thoughts and stuff. It is completely spoiler free, so don't worry about that. Next up is a 5-star book. Whoa, yeah. Really strict on the 5 stars, and I gave Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire a 5 stars. This book knocked my socks off. I absolutely adored it, and I did, as soon as I finished it, ran to my mother and was like, read it, read it, read it, read it, and forced her to read it, and she read it and she really loved it. This book kind of hit me out of nowhere. Like, I knew people loved it and enjoyed it, and I obviously knew it was so bloody tiny, and I kind of had the theory of like, if it's so small it can't be that great because there's no room for development and stuff, but oh boy was I wrong. This hit me out of nowhere, blew my socks off. I absolutely adored it. Again, I have a book babble on this, spoiler free completely, so go and watch that if you want more in-depth thoughts. But if you understand how strict I am with my 5-star ratings, the fact that I give it 5 out of 5 stars should emphasize to you how highly I think of this book, and just adored it very, very much. Highly recommend. If you haven't read this, please do, please do. Following on from that, I picked up Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna Maguire. I gave this one 4 stars. It wasn't as good as the first one, in my opinion. The first one, I think, because it had that element of surprise and I wasn't sure what to expect, hit me harder. This was still thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable, but I just didn't have quite the same overwhelming reaction that I had to the first one, so that's why I've given it a 4-star, but I still absolutely adored it, recommend it, love the characters, love the story. I'm shocked by how the author is able to pack so much and so much development and so much adventure and depth into such tiny books. It's a skill and I love it. Then for the week of Elfie Maeve's, I know how to pronounce her name now, Elfie Maeve's fantasy readathon thing, I read The Crown's Game by Evelyn Skye. I haven't done a book babble on this, and I'm not sure if I will. I don't know. In one of my reading vlogs, because I'm doing reading vlogs now, I talk about this in some depth when I just finished it. It's very, very similar to The Night Circus, but The Night Circus is better. Overall, I gave it 3 stars, I think. I think I gave it 3 stars. And it was good, I enjoyed it. It's like a more YA version of The Night Circus. It doesn't quite have that mystery element that The Night Circus has, and it doesn't have the whimsical writing and atmosphere that The Night Circus does, but it surrounds a magical competition between a boy and a girl, and they're supposed to be like pitted against each other, but they end up collaborating and so on and so forth. I mean, it was enjoyable, I liked it. I think what also gave this something more for me is that this is set in Russia, and I've been really enjoying any sort of story with a Russian element set in Russia, Russian folklore, etc. So I think that added something for me, but it was very similar to The Night Circus, but The Night Circus was better. However, I feel like the second book will be better than this one was, so I do anticipate picking up the second one at some point. Couldn't tell you when, because this kind of encompasses the whole story of what The Night Circus encompasses, and where this leaves off is actually very similar to where The Night Circus ends, like in many respects. So I feel like the second one will kind of stand on its own a little bit more and won't have that direct comparison, so I might potentially enjoy the second one more when I eventually get to it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on The Crown's Game. Then we go into the superhero-a-thon so far, and as I said, I finished 4 books for that, so let's just go into those. First one, short and sweet, Lumberjanes Volume 7. I used this for my what would Stan Lee do prompt, because I don't have a Marvel comic, so I just read a comic. And it was Lumberjanes. I think I gave this one 4 stars. It was really enjoyable. I liked where the story went and how the story progressed in this one. I feel like Lumberjane is very hit or miss. Like, some of them are really good, some of them are really poor, and I feel like this is one of the better ones. I mean, it's no volume 1, but I really enjoyed it. I liked it. It's Lumberjanes. Lumberjanes is fun and light-hearted, and I feel like the relationships in here were good. And the ending of this one leaves me like highly anticipating volume 8, so like I can't wait for that to happen, because cliffhanger. Next up, I picked up The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. I used this as my Captain Marvel book, which was a new release that you're excited to read, and this is a new release that I was excited to read, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. From start to finish, this book had me enthralled. I really did enjoy it. I ended up giving it a 4-star rating, but again, I think it's one of those 4.5. If I did half stars, it just didn't quite have the impact that a 5-star book has to have for me to give it 5 stars now. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the dark atmosphere around this, and the like curse and the witchcraft element and the murder. It was good. It was really dark and creepy, but also there was sort of that like just typical YA element to it as well. I think it was a nice combination. I really did enjoy it. If you aren't sure what The Wicked Deep is about, it's about a town called Sparrow where every June at least 3 boys drown in the harbour because the town is cursed by the Swan sisters, who were drowned 200 years ago for supposed witchcraft, and now they haunt the town and boys drown every summer. So yeah, slightly creepy, enjoyable, I recommend. Next up could potentially be an unpopular opinion, but I finished Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I didn't like this anywhere near as much as I think everyone else did. I ended up giving it 3 stars, probably closer to 2.5, but I rounded it up because the ending was really cute. Every time I read the sentence, "I don't know," in this book, I was internally screaming. Like, the overuse of that as a sentence, not even as dialogue, but as a sentence, "I don't know," just made me facepalm and scream on the inside. It was unnecessarily overused. Alongside that, it was boring. I didn't particularly enjoy the whole plot. Like, I was talking to Danielle on Instagram the whole time I was reading this, and apparently the main aspect of this book is the mystery behind Blue is, and for the majority of the book, I didn't care, like, whatever. And then when they found out who Blue was, it was cute, so that did redeem it after that point where it kind of did just turn into a cute romance, but that was really, like, really late in the book. Additionally, the girl-on-girl hate in here was unbearable. Unbearable. Like, I don't think I've ever noticed girl-on-girl hate as much as I have in this book, and that's potentially because I don't read many contemporaries, and I think contemporaries is where the majority of the girl-on-girl hate lies, because, you know, 2 girls fancy the same guy. And And that is exactly what happened in here. Two girls fancied the same guy, and one of the girls reacted really badly about the other girl, and girl on girl hate. It was unbearable to read. I despised that part of it so utterly. But I gave it 3 stars overall because in the end the romance was cute, and I did read it really quickly because it's a contemporary, so I suppose there's something in that. It didn't live up to the hype for me at all, and I think that's also why it was so disappointing, because I was expecting to love it as much as everyone else did, and I just didn't. And finally is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, and it was narrated by Dawn French, and that was just fantastic. If you don't know who Dawn French is, Google her. She's a comedian. She's hilarious. And her voice for narrating this was amazing. I loved it. It just made it so like, it's a children's book. It's a kind of creepy children's book. I assume most people know what Coraline is about because people would have seen the movie, but it's about a girl who goes exploring and finds another mother who has button eyes and wants to lure her into her world and keep her forever so she can never go back to her real mother. It's a creepy children's story, and the fact that Dawn French narrated it, it just felt like I was a child again and my mum was reading me a story. Like, Dawn French temporarily felt like my mum. Does that make sense? I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. Fun fact, I've never seen the Coraline movie, so this was a first time for me. I really enjoyed it. It was adorably creepy, but also fun. It was sort of like a take on Alice in Wonderland, I suppose. Like, Coraline goes through a door and ends up in another world, and it's adventurous but then turns pretty creepy pretty quickly, and yeah. Anyway, overall I gave this 4 stars. I love Neil Gaiman's writing, and this was no exception to that. I really enjoyed it. So there we have my March wrap up. I hope you have enjoyed. I feel like I've had a pretty solid reading month in March. Like, other than Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, I've enjoyed everything that I've read. The Crown's Game was a bit iffy, but I've enjoyed most of the books I've read. Like, nothing's other than perhaps parts of Simon has made me like upset. So I call that a solid month. I'm really pleased with my progress, and April will hopefully be even better because the superhero-a-thon continues and the Owls Magical Readathon starts in April, so it's overlapping readathon and then following readathon. So much reading to do. So I hope April will be smashed as well. I'm pleased with my March reading. I am proud of myself. Okay, I'm gonna stop babbling now. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed, please give us a thumbs up. Chat to me down in the comments about any of these books, if you read them, if you want to read them, and so on. I will try to remember to link the book babbles I've mentioned down below. If you aren't subscribed and fancy subscribing, I'm always eternally grateful for that. I upload every Sunday and Wednesday and some odd days in between if I'm feeling generous, and I will see you next time. Bye!